also. We are back on our Coyote Swap 1970 Chevelle project, and today is the big day. We are going to take this Coyote and slam it into the 1970 Chevelle, but we have a big problem. Our cross member in the frame is way too big and doesn't allow us to put the Coyote in the position and the height that we want. So in this episode, we are going to lob off this frame and create our own tube structure that allows the Coyote to sit exactly where we want to. This is going to be a fabrication and design heavy episode, but if we pull this off, we will have the Coyote sitting pretty inside a 1970 Chevelle, and all our geometry will be correct. Dive in and figure out how we're actually going to make this happen. Grab your popcorn, grab your loved one, sit down and get ready as we put the 5.0 Coyote in the 1970 Chevelle. Before we start cutting, I'm going to go ahead and make ourselves a brace out of some chromoly tube so the frame doesn't crumple in on itself. Then from there we can start whittling away on the outside and figure out how we're going to tie this whole thing together. 27. Now, this is not going to be as in-depth as the El Camino. The El Camino, we actually built a table, we jigged everything up. When it comes to the Chevelle, we just have to kind of slowly go through the process, make sure the frame is still locked together, and that's what this cross tube's for. What I'm going to try to do now is start making my plot points, and I think I have a design already. After I removed all this, I'm going to tie a tube here. There's going to be a tube here, and then from there, I'm going to triangulate the tube with no bends straight down. So this will take the pressure, this tube here. Get the angle now, rough this shape in. So I got everything propped up. This should stick right to the original location, and this can hopefully just come out. So I'm going to go ahead and take our measurements for this, and then we're going to plot this. Now in the bottom I have everything kind of settled up and pushed in. Everything is steady and level, so I'm very lucky that these all, well, really that everything was kind of just here in place and there was no real instability with it. So what I'm going to do now is measure our diameter, make a perch. We're going to put our tube that we cut here, and this is going to be the first part of our tubular structure for the bottom. I designed large 1/4-inch tabs. This is going to hook around our lower control arm perch. I designed in a way that's going to allow me to do a cross tube, which will take the load horizontally. Okay, we have our finished designs. As you guys can tell, it's a little different. I actually had to add some meat down here. I calculated the height of my tube, but it was too high, so it would have been in the way, so I had to lower this. It's not ideal because I wanted to put the load into here where the control arm is, but I'm going to make up for it and dive a tube from here to our other tube, so we'll triangulate it here in the end. Now that we got our brackets, I'm going to go ahead and install them, get everything true and 90 and level to the frame. What I'm going to do now is take my time, come in here, and this is going to be the base. I got an idea of how I'm going to tie the whole frame together, and it kind of works because we have to actually install a new steering box. We are going to change our steering ratio in our unit. This is a manual steering box that's a nightmare for the street. So it would not be fun trying to drive this thing around with this. Too many turn to turn. It's like 4 turns lock to lock. So we're going to put updated performance power steering in it. This box is like an old school race trick. If you want to go fast, you put a manual steering box in with this lock. It makes it super fun at the drag strip because it doesn't track very fast. But for street driving, it's no good. This is our least power steering box. We're going to take off the old Saginaw unit and put their updated unit into it. Mock this up, put it in so I know where to bend the tubes around it. But we're going to dive heavy into this and why we changed the ratio for the Chevelle for what we're doing. This is a precise ratio they put together so we can do multi-facets and be kind of good at all of them. We can do the time attack stuff and we can do drag racing. So we can actually have this thing go around corners and I can feel the input. So we'll dive into that later on. For now, let's bolt it up and use it as a gauge because I think I'm going to do something cool with how I cross the tubes in the Chevelle to keep everything out of the way. Now we have these vent holes here that I'm gonna have to fix. I'm gonna start hammering it, but what I'm gonna do is put a patch panel, which I already made here. We're gonna weld that in. Same thing on the opposing side. Cross this one to here, and then I'm gonna tie this back to here. Maybe a little overkill, but I'd rather go overkill, especially where we're going with this car with heavy street miles and tons of racing. I don't care if it's a little heavy. I think we'll just make up for whatever was in here before. So yeah, I'm gonna try to find a place I can put a tube here. Definitely plate to tube here, and then we're gonna tie it back to our perch. We'll start with the first tube. that we got our launch pads in, I'm gonna go ahead and tie this to this, and then we're gonna start tying this to our back perch. So let's cut some tubes. This is a pretty simple one. Miter and tie it to here. Once we get this tacked on, we can start kind of welding this whole thing up. But yeah, this is cool. I wanted to spread the load of this. This is only 1/8 inch material, I believe. So this is going to tie this in. Then I'm going to triangulate back here to this guy, and then we'll add some other kind of crossbar maybe up here so this thing doesn't collapse in. And then yeah, I mean, it's starting to take shape. I really like this. I can't wait to weld this all in and make it all nice, but we're starting to have a good base. I actually went for a straight tube and mitered it, but the bottom of the base wasn't big enough for the footprint of the tube. So I went back to the drawing board, cut a longer piece, and I put a bend in it so both my tube sections had the same 1 5/8 base. Once we got our tube cut and everything aligned, I went ahead and pulled back out the original piece that we designed so I could fully weld it. Then we're going to install it and weld our chassis to it. Then from there, we'll have almost a finished piece. Now it's time to kick them tires and light them fires and assemble our little puzzle piece. I created 2 triangular supports that tie to the lower part of the original frame and then triangulate into our new cross brace. You will also see another cross brace in the front that will be the permanent part of the frame. I need this little telltale to kind of help guide me along. I'm just going to put it directly in the center of the frame in the front to kind of help me eyeball as I make my motor mounts. Also going to use my laser to kind of get me a little bit closer off my telltale. So if you can see that, we have to come over just like that. So what I'm going to do is measure our distance from our frame over to our engine mount, make our 1 tube, set it, and then we'll level that side, knock the other one in and measure for that. Cut it a little longer. 5.5. Trim it up, see how it looks. A little less. All right, I just trimmed it. We're going to put it in, and we're going to tack it, and we're going to start leveling it. This thing is pretty darn close to being on its own power. See what we look like, and then we'll play with this. Make sure we're centered in our laser line. 3.5. 3.5. There we go. Perfect. Okay, we're centered. All right, this is exciting. All right, so I have my frame, which is not level because we're on the table. But based off of that, I am now incrementally kicking in the level of this based on this. This is how I did it. I'm jacking, it's taking me about an hour. I'm sitting here and I'm playing with my heights. So I'm gonna take a couple more measurements, check all around the car, and get the engine perfectly level with how the frame is sitting. I'm gonna go ahead and make my tube, start working on this side, and then we're gonna start pressing it in, pop it in the joint, tack, 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 and it's not really stable, so I'll have to make some downward tubes and then tack that in, and then this thing is on its own. So let me go figure this out, and then yeah, we're getting close. You ever been cruising down the road and something like this happens to you? Well, hello.
Oh.
Are you okay, my friend?
I think it's overheated. The coolant's leaking.
Oh. Well, here's the problem. Your car's got 480,000 miles on it. Your hose blew off, made a total mess, but I cleaned it all up in a matter of 30 seconds, and now you're ready to go, but we got to do one more thing.
Thank you so much.
So we get this thing all fixed up. You got any plans afterwards?
I'm going to see my boyfriend.
Oh, nope. I'm not getting any more of this. All set. Toodaloo, good luck. Come on, come on, come on. Come on. Bye-bye. Toodaloo. Nobody wastes my peak! So I'm gonna be the first to admit that was a bit unhinged, but I was... But I had that idea for a long time and I wanted to try it. It was a perfect opportunity because we are now sponsored by Peak, and honestly, guys, I am so excited. I don't know if you can tell. Peak came on board for the El Camino and the Chevelle build, and we have some very special stuff planned for you that I think you're all really gonna enjoy. And after this video, I'm gonna tell you guys what that is. So with the help of Peak, we are gonna do something that I think you guys will all hopefully will enjoy. It's gonna be a huge feat on my part to make it happen, but it's very special. And then in the next video, I'll tell you what we're gonna be doing with the Chevelle. And it has to do with a very long drive to a very special event, and I'm just fired up, and I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without Peak's help. So Peak, if you're watching, I love you. If you guys see them, tune in, give them a like and subscribe, and we'll dive more into what Peak has to offer for you guys later on. So yeah, on that note, back to our regularly scheduled program. So here we go. At this point, I'm just leveling the engine, making sure everything is truly level with the frame itself. I play with it for a bit, then once I get things tuned in, I start tack welding all the mounts that I created to hold this thing in place. What you guys don't see off camera is when I pulled the engine out, I created 2 down tubes to the bottom to let all the load of the engine itself drive itself into our new frame. All right, so I tied my tube down to my actual K-member frame. And then from there, I'm just gonna tack everything in because I wanna get the engine in, check everything one more time, and then from there, we'll start building ourselves up. So at the very end, we'll take it apart and I'll weld all this stuff. I'm actually gonna make a filler plate that rides this line, that contours down, then rides this, and I'll fill it so it looks like it's one piece, look like it's almost one part of the chassis. So we'll do that in the very, very end before I paint it. I reinstalled the engine to make sure nothing shifted after I did all my tack welds and gave it one final check. She's under her own power. Oh, that is awesome. The next thing I had to accomplish was I had to change the bracket on my crossmember mount. I had to rip the old one off and design a new one that raised up my tail shaft. The whole assembly of the engine is half an inch higher compared to a small block Chevy to fit the oil pan. Once I did that, I changed it just a bit, changed the downward slope from 3 degrees to 2 degrees. How sick is that? Let's get it on the ground. Let's get ready for phase 2. I'm gonna clean up a little bit, sweep. We're gonna organize, and then we can start building upwards. All right, now that we have it all set, everything's under its own power, it is now time to start bolting on our accessories. Start getting things laid out, see how it's gonna look so we can start working on the next part, which will be the next video where we actually put turbos on this thing. I'm gonna do a twin turbo setup. We're gonna make it all by hand here in the shop. First, I need to lay everything out. Intake, starter, all the accessories we can pretty much get our hands onto to get everything lined up to see what stuff we have to dodge. Now that we cut most of the frame out, we have a lot of room, but we still have to figure out how we're gonna build the headers and run all the tubing. Things are gonna get very tight, but before we dive into that, let's get some stuff bolted on. And we are so lucky Summit Racing came on board and supplied us with the parts you're going to see here next so we can push forward with the project. So let's get them unboxed, show you what we're doing, show you why we went with this stuff, and then yeah, start getting rocking and rolling. Summit came through and absolutely hooked us up. We've got a new starter, our new Boss 302 intake, and our 200 amp Ford Performance alternator. I picked this intake because honestly, most of my new Coyote friends told me it was the best all-around piece that I could get for what I'm trying to do. Good street drivability with the ability to really be able to crank this thing up later on the road. It's a composite intake, but apparently it could take up to 30 pounds of boost, so it seems like we're putting ourselves in a good spot to be able to crank this thing up later on. All right, now that we have the Coyote on the table, I'm gonna go ahead and try to put our alternator in the pocket of where the AC is. Played around with it a little bit. What I'm gonna do is try to make a metal one, and then we can always machine it later on, or I can make it out of aluminum. But for now, to see if my concept works, I'm gonna kind of just loosely design it, tack it, get it in line, see if we can find a belt and go from there. So I got some perches that I wanna use, and I also have these 2 off the front cover here. So I'm gonna try to create like a roll tab. I'm almost gonna mimic what the other side is. I'm gonna roll this in here, attach it to this bolt in here to give it stability. We're gonna hook on our hook side of this, which is right here, and then down here, I'm going to tie these 2 and this one together somehow and come out and hold it. It's going to be locked in. We'll use the tensioner. So let's go ahead and design the top one, loosely cut it, kind of start working our way around it, and just start kind of designing something. And I'm just going to do it the old school way. I'm not going to sit there and scan it or anything. It'll take forever. So I'm just going to hold it, tack it, build it, go from there. So let's dive in. So I don't really know where this design's going, so I'm just going to start connecting the dots, see what it needs, and then we're going to see if we can create it again, like I said, out of steel. So I'm going to go ahead and create this bracket first, which is going to be bolt spacing of 520. It's going to be the tab where I'm going to offset this. So once we get this thing in here and hanging by itself, I can kind of start tying it together. So let's go ahead and design this piece off these 2 bolts, and then I'll tie this one into it somehow to give it some strength and rigidity. All right, let's try it. Had to change some things to make it real tight. Had to change the notch right here, if you can see that. Then this will be this is just a tester, by the way. We're just going to kind of get everything mocked up. The alignment for this has got to be perfect. So we can put a shim here. So really, we can go ahead and blast a hole out for our alternator. Oh, that's cool. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put a hole in the next one for this. Then we'll hold it and then figure out what the heck we're gonna do with it. Okay, so after the cut, it was actually a long process to get to how we got here, but I didn't know how to document it, so I was really in the thick of it, and it took me an entire day to come up with this, and I wanted to show you how I got here and kind of how it came about. So don't let the editing trick you. This wasn't easy. This was pain in the butt, but this is what we got. The original design looked like this. And then I came out and I found out there was a bolt hole that I wanted to capture, this small one. So I started to edit my design and fill in some meat, and then I changed the arc of where the alternator is. Now here's the problem. I got it in there. Everything was lined up. It took me a couple hours to kind of figure out the geometry, figure out the potholes. And then I was like, oh man, I don't have room in my car. The alternator hits right here. Just barely nicks it. I would have took out the back of the cap. I was like, oh no. So I did some research, and apparently it's pretty common. People flip the alternators on these things. I'm all new to the Coyote world, but apparently there's like a bunch of cool companies that make like front accessory drives. I think one's Power by the Hour and it's like front wise, but I was like, let me just take a crack at it since I'm already here. So this is what I came up with. What's cool is my original design worked out pretty well. I hooked that bottom bolt, but when I flipped it, this was right in line, almost the bottom of the belt. I had to change over some of my designs, and I raised it up 1.5 inches, and I darted it over 1.5 inches. And now the alternator is going to be mounted backwards. And then for all the stuff, I just went and bought all new bolts. Bolts that go inside the case, the cover, and then I got spacers. These are from Ace. I just got these in my machine. I beveled them with this. So I spent a couple hours tuning it in, make sure they're all flat. And then from there, these are going to come out off our plate. So if my theory is correct, my alternator will hang out here. And I found out how to make this plate true to the front of this fascia and get it perfectly in line with our crank. Let's go ahead and install it. I'll show you how the design came through. I wish I could have shown you guys more, but my brain was at like max capacity trying to figure this all out. But it's actually really cool. We have a front mount alternator, and apparently people do it all the time. The rectifier will be fine spinning opposite. Apparently it's the fan, so I'll have to watch out and make sure this thing still cools itself. But everything in this car is going to be open. And also, it's getting it away from I don't want to show you this for the next episode, but it's going to get it away from our heat. So I think it's going to be okay. We will find out. Let's go pick up a Dayco belt. I have an idea. I want to get a couple of them, but I think it's going to be somewhere in the 51 to 52 inches. I'm going to a local hardware store, get one, and we'll get ready to pop this on. Woo! All right, so first off in the design, going to be your Allen key guide bolt. This goes in here with no spacer. This is the perfectly flat one. Behind this, there is this washer. I had to go through a bunch of these. This is going to ride back. Then this is where the bigger spacer is. I have this. This rides on the back with a smaller one. I just wanted to get more contact area. Let's tighten these up. The Allen key drive these in. Part of the problem it took so long too was finding out this indent. This indent, without scanning it, took me forever to do by hand. I had to keep on measuring off the bolt, come through, keep on thwacking it, and I had to make renditions where this was just that close. I didn't have to make it that tight. I thought it'd just make it kind of nicer quality. Now that we have that, it's time for our alternator. Take our generic spacers. We should make these out of aluminum. These are a little heavy, but for now, I think once I get these on later on, I'll weld these to make it even more structurally sound. Spacer. Okay, now here's the fun part. We have to put our belt on. Took some time. I wrapped around my shoelace and I measured it around all the pulleys. And this is exactly how Ford would have did it with the AC, I believe. I do have to order a new tensioner. This one's old. So when we get the real motor, we'll update that. And then from there, it's kind of our guidance ship. We'll wrap everything around. And I played with the belt size. I went to 1/2 inch below, 1/2 inch bigger. This was the only one that didn't fight me all the way, and I felt like it wasn't putting a huge strain on anything, but it was also tight. Now here's the fun part. This belt now gets a spacer. Bolt goes through with our nut. From there, we loosen up the belt, push our bolt through. I'm trying to take the stress off. Bang. I really like it. I think the one thing that I do want to do, as you can tell, though, it took me a long time to figure out the right belt. It's tight, but it's not overbearing. All the other ones were like super strenuous on this. I'm gonna get a new one of these just because this one's got like 200,000 miles on it. But you can see our kit is nice. We are perfectly straight and level. And if anything, I might have to come over a 16th in. But other than that, we have ourselves a kit. And I think what I am gonna do later on, because it kind of weirds me out, is that originally a bolt would go through here with a shim. I made a shim here. I think I'm gonna do the shim with a longer bolt. I'll order online, and I'll tie it off here and just give it one more. I mean, this is like, I don't know if I can even show you. Yeah, this is not going anywhere, but I think just because I don't ever have to worry about it, bolt, bang, bang. So we have ourselves a nice little kit. I was a little worried, get into it, and I wish I documented it better, but here we are. On that note, I am going to end this episode. I really want to say thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for being a part of this. Thanks for being patient. I know a lot of you guys want to see the Elko, but this car is on my heart, and I really want to get it done, and I want to enjoy it. I really just, I want to drive something and, you know, have some fun with you guys on the channel. So, yeah, we're going all in. And on that note, if you guys can tune in and subscribe and all that good jazz, next episode, we have a little surprise. We're going to go twin turbo on the Coyote, so we have to do full turbo fab. I got to route the tubing, mount the headers, make everything so I can service it. And look at this. Stainless headers MFG came through and created this log style header for us with max tubing capacity so we can make up to 1,400 horse. I did this because I want to be able to put a lot of street miles on it, and there's something that's cooking for this that I'm gearing up for, and I hope I can make it. So I'm out of here, taking a nap. I'm gonna reset, get ready for that, and then do it again. Hope all's well, guys, and hope to talk to you soon. Toodaloo.